And I was wondering what he was referring to as wash your hands off. Why is he telling this? So it's something that's, in the offing that I have to respond to, it looks like. So my instruction remains, I want you to go and meet Bhagwan in the mandir. So I kind of was not sure what kind of a situation I was stuck in. It was kind of a little odd. And I'm saying, okay, if Bhagwan really intended to call me or speak to me, he would anyway know that I'm here and he'll say what he has to say. And then he turned around and he said, Mane. Mane translates into stop.
Sairam, dear listeners, welcome to Sai SOUL 100. Our guest today is Brother Vijay Sai, who's joining us from Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania. He'll be sharing his transformative experiences under the direction and guidance of Bhagavan Sri Satya Sai Baba. Sairam, Brother Vijay Sai, thank you for joining us.
Sairam, Sister Prabha, good seeing you. It's good to be on this program, and thank you for having me.
Thank you. Please share your story.
I'm going to take the audience back in time about 3 decades. It was at a crossroads in my own professional career at the time, and I was involved in leading a couple of family businesses. So let me get straight into the story. And Bhagwan had arrived one time in my dreams. It probably was closer to about 5:30 a.m. And as he was walking down emerged from his residence and he was walking into Kulwant Hall, I was one of the 5 people who were standing behind him or walking behind him, almost like the brothers who would be at his service through the darshan time. And following the darshan, Bhagwan usually, as you might recall, steps away into the veranda, and all of the 5 brothers would stand quite a distance away since the service is pretty much over till he emerges back again into Kulwant Hall or he walks back to his residence. What happened was, as we were standing away from him, he, instead of walking to the veranda, he chose to walk to the wall of the mandir on the ladies' side. And he opened the tap and he washed his hands. And then he looked back at the 5 of us and he, with his finger, said to come to him. He was only calling for one of them, and I wasn't sure. It appeared it was me, but then I turned left and right to look at the other 2 brothers, and both of them, and both sides, they said, he's calling you, so you'll have to step forward. And Bhagwan was still repeating the same gesture, so I walk up to him, and he told me, wash your hands. And so I wasn't sure. I opened the tap, I washed my hands, but I was thinking about the English expression. When you say wash your hands, I was relating it to wash your hands off. And I was wondering what he was referring to as wash your hands off. Why is he telling this? So it's something that's, in the offing that I have to respond to, it looks like, was what was transpiring in my mind. And 2 things were there going on at the time. One was my father was ill, and he wasn't in great shape. Things were deteriorating somewhat. And on the flip side, we had this family business, which was in no different condition. It was also deteriorating quite rapidly. And so I wasn't sure which one he was referring to. And so I emerged from the dream and I woke up and I said, what was this? Time, as I said, somewhere around 5:30, 5:45 in the morning. And then I heard some commotion downstairs. And so I quickly ran down, and my dad was quickly slipping into a coma. And I ran back up. I quickly brushed my teeth, got the driver home in the meanwhile, and then I took my dad to the hospital. And in the hospital, they did confirm that he had gone through some health situation that caused him to be in an ICU. And then it said they will let us know. And I came back home, took a few things to the hospital, made sure my mom was settled in. And then the following morning, Bhagwan emerges back in my dream. And he says, this time, be ready in 15 days, is what he said. That's what I caught from what he told me. And on the 15th day, it turned out my father passed away. And then, of course, we had to go through all the rituals and all this stuff. And then I began to feel that I had a certain responsibility of a different kind, which I had never experienced before because I'd taken things for granted. And anyway, so it's a time when you still had the other trouble going on, right? That wasn't gone. A few months later, I encountered yet another dream. The dream setting was I was in Kulwanthal, the regular darshan, 7:20, 7:30 in the morning. You wait for Bhagwan, and then he comes by, 20 minutes of darshan, maybe 25 minutes. He steps away into the veranda, and then you wait for some time. And after things settle down, I would normally leave, and I would get across the street to the bakery, and I would buy my 3 newspapers, Deccan Herald, Indian Express, Hindu, and then spend the next couple of hours sitting in the bakery, drinking off coffee and reading the newspapers and potentially interacting with other devotees who were there in Puttaparthi. So that's how my mornings would go. On this particular morning, it turned out that there was this elderly gentleman who was coming towards me in Kulwanthal as I was beginning to exit. And he asked me, "Where are you going?" I didn't know him by Adam or Eve, elderly gentleman. So I said, "Sir, I'm just stepping away, go get my breakfast." He said, "No, you're not going now." I said, "But why?" And he said, "Bhagwan is in the mandir, and I want you to go and meet him because I think he's ready to meet you." I said, "Sir, it doesn't work like that. You got to be called by Bhagwan to step into the mandir to meet him." He said, "This is the same form of disrespect that you are generally used to. I'm an elderly person. I'm giving you some advice, and you just shun it, and you decide what the protocol is. So my instruction remains. I want you to go and meet Bhagwan in the mandir." So I kind of was not sure what kind of a situation I was stuck in. It was kind of a little odd because it was really odd. I mean, I could never have any example that this is even possible, that you would be encountered by somebody you don't know and you're used to this protocol, but he insists that I have to go in, and I didn't know what I had to face. But then he called out this idea that I was disrespectful, and that caught me kind of a little bit unawares. And I wasn't able to, it was almost like an awakening. Was I really a person who was disrespecting people, not just this gentleman? Anyway, I said, "Okay, fair enough. Here is it. I have an instruction. I'm going to go. Let's see what happens," right? So I walk up to the double doors on the left side, closer to the gate, Kulwanthal, the devotee gate. And then I went and I go knock the door. And it was open. So I managed to push it ajar. And I slid inside and I shut the door. On the far corner, on the ladies' side, there's there's a Ganesh idol, there's the Krishna idol, there's also sometimes they place the lingam there, in front of where the ladies sit. There was a swing, and Bhagwan had reclined himself fully, right? I mean, he literally entirely reclined himself with his head on a pillow, and his hand was under his head. And you won't even believe what I'm going to say. He was watching a television which was on the far side of the room where the Krishna chariot is, Krishna Arjuna chariot is. And it was 3 decades ago, and it was a flat panel television. Okay. So, and he was watching the news. And so anyway, I've now stepped into this. I'm caught a glimpse of him in that reclined position. And I was walking the perimeter of the room. There was only one other person in it. And there was a student. And he was studying. He was seated on the floor towards the veranda side with his back against the wall and a textbook in his hands, and he was reading. So I just tiptoe my way along the perimeter of the wall, get around the student, and then go towards Bhagwan, and I go sit down on the floor behind that swing, about a foot away, kind of diagonally behind Bhagwan's head, because I didn't want to be anywhere close to him. I'm an uninvited guest, and I've just come here, and I'm sitting there and waiting. And I'm saying, okay, if Bhagwan really intended to call me or speak to me, he would anyway know that I'm here, and he'll say what he has to say. I waited for about 2-3 minutes, And there was absolutely no sign of acknowledgement that I was there. And that caused me to become a little somewhat nervous. I would even say possibly agitated, saying that I told that gentleman that Bhagwan has to invite you before you can come in front of him. And here's Bhagwan, continue to watch the news. He knows I'm here and he doesn't want to talk. And then I decided to draw his attention, so I pretended to cough. And I waited, no sign of acknowledgement. So I chose to cough a little louder. And then he turned around and he said in Telugu, Emi vachinavu, basically translating into, why have you come? So I responded telling him, we're having some problems. He said, what problems? I said, business problems. He said, what business? I said, leather business. And he said, Mane. Mane translates into stop. I said, stop it. And I woke up. I woke up. And this was the moment, the transformative moment. I had no more connection with him. The dream was over. The instruction was received. And I had a meeting that morning at 10:30 with a client from Detroit. And I'm here in Chennai dreaming, okay. And my mind was going back and forth. This was a deal that we were going to discuss for the upcoming fall season. And I believe this was probably in the February, March timeframe of that year. And I had set up everything. The meeting was set up. Who was to be at the meeting was all set up. And I got ready by about 6:15 in the morning, because this dream happened at about 5:30, 5:45. And I came down fully dressed. I got unusually dressed too early for this meeting. 10:30 is 4 hours away almost. But the thing was, I was trying to, I guess in some sense, I was in conflict with what I experienced in the dream. He said, stop it. And I'm trying to say, wait a minute, that is not quite right, because I have this meeting. And so I got dressed and I was walking downstairs inside my house. I was walking like a tiger in a cage, back and forth to the puja room and back, puja room and back, puja room and back. I was going through a mental conflict. I said, this is Bhagwan saying, stop it. On the other side, I'm telling myself, Bhagwan doesn't get it. And there's things which have been set up. There's a client, we've got to move. I mean, this client has come from Detroit. He's not come from the next door. And this frantic movement, endlessly, 30, 40, 45 minutes, 1 hour, 1.5 hours. And I could not digest it. But eventually, I don't even know it was by design. I picked up the phone. I called the factory where we manufacture the garments. And I called the master. Refer to the person as a master. He's supposed to be coordinating the staff, particularly the tailor staff. And he gives them the instructions, etc. I called the factory. The master received the phone. I told the master, meeting canceled. And I told him, tell the people in the factory to meet me the following Monday in the factory, and lock the factory, go pass on the keys to the manager, and I will take care of the rest. That was phone call number 1. Phone call number 2, I called my partners. I told them, hey, I'm hanging up my boots. No questions asked. And number 3, I called the manager and I told him, the master is going to come and give you the keys, and I'll come in next Monday. And after that, I didn't know what actually happened between 5:30 in the morning and 8 a.m. I sat and tried to sort it out in my head, but there was no real sorting happening. It was just happening. I didn't want to think too much about it. In fact, I was not being permitted to think about it because it was happening. And so eventually, uh, the next few weeks went by. The one thing that came back to me in reflection, in hindsight, was when I was at the tap in the mandir, when Bhagwan said, wash your hands off. And I was wondering what he meant, whether he meant my father or whether he meant my business. Both gone. And then I said, okay, this is a whole new life you're leading here now. Okay. And I said, what's next? And I had no clue. I had absolutely no clue because I knew there was enough work to do because you had to wind down. And winding down wasn't easy. There are so many things. A few months later, I was in Puttaparthi and I was feeling somewhat unwell while I was in Puttaparthi. And I was residing in the North Block. And there was a medical camp going on in the North Block. I was physically there and I'm experiencing it. The first two things I mentioned was in the dream. And so I thought, okay, since after the morning darshan was over, I was not feeling well. I went back to the medical camp and I said, I'm feeling slightly unwell. They took my blood pressure and they said, well, your blood pressure is really high. We're going to give you a tablet and we want you to take this tablet, get some rest, and then come back in a couple of hours and then we'll check you out again. So I took the tablet, I went upstairs to the bedroom and I threw the tablet into the trash can and I went to bed because I didn't want to take the medicine. I was sleeping deep in slumber and Bhagwan appears in my dream. And the way this goes is, in the dream, I'm late for darshan, for the afternoon darshan. And I am suddenly saying, oh my God, I'm late. I got to run. And I wash my face. I quickly run down to Kulwant Hall. And the hall was jam-packed. I just barely managed to get in and sit by the feet of the people, the elderly people that sit on the men's side against the wall. There are benches for the elderly to sit. So I went and sat there and Bhagwan emerges for darshan. And then he walks up. And when he gets approximately to the point where I'm seated, he waves his hands to people to make a path. And they all move, quickly make a path for him to walk up to me, towards me. He comes to me and he says, give me what's in your pocket. And I said, seriously? In my mind, I said, seriously? You really want that? And I said, I pulled it out. It was a list, a long list of numerous things that I had to do because of that one decision that he made for me, which he said, stop it. And that resulted in this long list. And I mean, it was so long. And I'm saying, I don't even know. That in some sense, as much as it seemed like a burden, I wasn't feeling it, but I knew it had to be done. He said, I want that list. And I gave it to him. He looked at the list and he said, give me the pen. I had a pen in my pocket. I gave him the pen. He checked a few things on the list and he returned it back to me along with my pen. And he said, I'll take care of those. You take care of the rest. And I took that, put it back in my pocket, and I woke up from the dream. I did not know what he checked. It was not checked in my pocket, in the list in my pocket. But the fact is that he was so kind that he went to that extent of being involved in my daily life in that form and fashion, which is what that unconditional love is. He just didn't tell me, stop it. He said, stop it. I'm still with you, though. When I say stop it, I'm with you. I'm not telling you to stop it and then let you go figure it out. I've already figured it out and I know what's going to happen, kind of a thing. That's who he is. He's just above and beyond anything any human can fathom or analyze. Or anyway, the journey went, and all of a sudden here I am. And the good news is that I was led to somehow, I would imagine, with the divine force, because a few weeks later, I met a friend of mine in Shirdi Sai Temple in Chennai. We were walking all the way together towards the sanctum for Pada Namaskar. He listened to my story, the fact that I had shut business down. I'm a chartered accountant, and so he was a chartered accountant. He and I were classmates. And he said, how's things going on? And I said, look, I'm at the crossroads. I shut what I was doing, and I'm now trying to reposition. And he and I exchanged some ideas, and he said no with an explanation why. And we are almost approaching setting foot into the sanctum for Pada Namaskar. And he says, if you're interested in pursuing a computer software profession as a consultant, a friend of mine has done something. He's also a chartered accountant. He did it and he's gone to the United States. If you're interested in pursuing something like that, I will share information about my friend and you can talk to him and you can find out if that's the right thing. And he said, if you have the aptitude, it might be a good fit. I said, look, aptitude or no aptitude, I'm going to find it. So tell me what your friend's details are. He said, come on tomorrow and I'll introduce him to you. And I said, went to him. And here I am now spending the 26th year in the United States of America with this Bhagwan's blessing, because when the H-1B was approved, I went to tell him that. I said, Swami, the H-1B has been approved. I am preparing to depart the United States. And he said, Santosham. So now, of course, I'm living it every day.
When you had these dreams at the beginning, Swami wasn't doing this in person. He wasn't guiding you in person. He knew exactly what was going on in your lives, and he knew exactly where you were or where he did not want you to be. Your attachment to your father, your attachment to work and being caught up in that drama. And he came in your dream so lovingly, so much unconditional love to take care of you. And he said, wash your hands off. He said, stop it. And he lets you keep guessing, though, which is it, Swami? Both. Ended up being both, right? Because he's teaching you detachment, surrender, and to wash off your hands of these worldly entanglement that he had put you in. And you had to truly trust. You put that trust in that dream because Swami is guiding you, right? It's hard to kind of tell how is Swami guiding me after that dream. You start doubting. But between that 5 a.m. in the morning after the dream and 8 a.m., you kind of put stop to a whole lot of things without even understanding, having that trust and that faith, right? And then when you go back, ultimately, after all of this, when you go back to Swami and says, I'm going to the United States, when he says Sandosham, you can see his hands all over it. And it's such a blessing to recognize that he's with us, whether he is with us physically or not.
Yeah, that's true. That's true. And so that was, I mean, you're absolutely right. I mean, and through, the one thing that he made sure was that I was not under stress. I was myself. I was totally myself. I was never distracted. I was never thinking, oh my God, the world is ending. Absolutely nothing of that kind. And everything was happening. And I wasn't really, oh my God, I've got to do this. Oh my God, I've got to do this. You see how you could easily get into slippage? I was just Vijay Sai. I mean, I was Vijay Sai, and I would also be remiss if I did not mention Joy Thomas, the Bhagwan's devotee and the author of the, Life is Love, Live It, Life is a Challenge, Meet It, Life is a Game, Play It. And I believe there was another fourth book. In one of my visits to where Bhagwan was guiding me during that phase when we had shut down and there was things that need to be sorted out. And of course, what's the next steps? I went into the bookstore and this set of books attracted me for some reason. I mean, in all my years, I've never stepped into that bookstore. I walked into the bookstore and it cost, I believe, 10 rupees a book. I bought those 4 books. And the interesting thing about Joy Thomas, I mean, I'm so grateful to her as well that Bhagwan presented her to me through that book during that very period. She says, look, if you are human, And if you're really human, you would need to acknowledge the divine. And if you acknowledge the divine, you should be able to afford a few seconds in your life, once in the morning and once in the evening, to go to him and say a short prayer. And what it was, I've come again from the womb of sleep, and I'm determined to carry out all tasks of today as offerings to you, with you ever present before my mind's eye. Let my thoughts, words, and deeds be sacred and pure. Let me not harm anybody. Let nobody harm me. Please guide me and direct me this day. Om Shri Sairam. She said the prayer in the evening that you would go and say, Swami, the tasks of today are now being done. It was you who made me walk, talk, and think the way I did. I now place all my thoughts, words, and deeds at your divine lotus feet. Please receive me. I'm coming back to you. Om Shri Sairam. She said that, and today, 30 years later, I say that every day. Every day, it begins with Joy Thomas being my door to Bhagwan, and every day winds up through Joy Thomas being the door back to Bhagwan. And it has become part of my fabric, thanks to him making myself conscious about the presence of the divine. Because prior to that, as far as I thought about things, the only thing that was present was me. That is how I was. So it was transformative in that sense, saying, Vijay, it's not about you. It is you are because of. It's not you are. And so it was that transformation as well.
I really love this profound prayer that you had mentioned. And I love the fact that you're giving credit to the fact that there are devotees, there are situations through which Swami helps us connect to him, right? And prayers and lessons and transformative moments come through dreams, through people, but all of those are intentionally put towards us by Swami. And I just love the fact that you said, you are because of, not because you are it. It's not about you. It's about Swami working through us and using us as his instruments. But at the same time, it's more him transforming us. We are who we are because of him. Thank you for joining us at Sai Soul 100. It's been a pleasure listening to your stories.
Thank you very much for the opportunity once again.
Sairam, dear listeners, thank you for listening to Sai Soul 100 with Brother Vijay Sai. I'm Prabha Swaminathan. Until next time, Jai Sairam.